Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 4 2022 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, and I want to apologize to everyone. Usually I do these videos on Mondays, but yesterday I had a lot of errands I had to run, and then by the time I got home, I needed to write all my stats down, and it was just too late before the Giants game, so I didn't do it yesterday. My plan next week is to do the Week 5 video on Monday, just like I usually do, to get it up on Monday afternoon. But today you get a special video on a Tuesday. So, but overall though, I am happy to be back for a 4th week of predictions for this season. And I have to say that last week for the Fanatic, it was a good week. It was a great week in one way and a okay week in another. So last week against the spread, I had one of my best weekends against the spread that I've had. I went 10-5-1 against the spread, which equals up to 63.3%. Thankfully, I took the Texans +3 at the time when I made my video, and they ended up losing only by 3, so that was a push. In the other 15 games, I went 10-5, and I got 2 of the 3 upsets. One outright. I took Dallas +2.5, and I took Atlanta +2.5, and they won both of those games outright. So I'm very happy about that. Upset about the San Francisco-Denver one. I actually really feel bad because I took San Francisco. I believe that line ended up with San Francisco being a 1.5 point dog. With how that game ended, everybody would have been right. But yeah, so it was a phenomenal week against the spread, straight up with all the craziness. And I want to shout out Andrew Deutsch, who made a couple comments on my video that the Colts, after making all that hay last week about if I told anybody in Survivor picks, there was one game to pick, it would have been the Chiefs over the Colts. Well, after the Chiefs decided to have one of their worst special teams days ever, with the muffed punt, the missed field goal, that fake field goal, getting Matt Ryan to throw 2 touchdowns to Jelani Woods for 2 of his, 2 out of 3 catches for his career. That was a massive upset that nobody really expected, and now this whole season doesn't even make any sense. But with stuff like that, the Bills over the Dolphins, that was a crazy game where the Bills had the ball for 40 minutes and 29 seconds. They had 497 total yards and ran 90 plays. Miami, in those same statistical categories, ran 39 plays, gained 212 yards, and held the ball under 20 minutes. And they still won the game in their first win in the last 7 tries against the Bills. And they won that one. That was a crazy finish. You look at Houston-Chicago, I mentioned that one. That was a 3-point game. And actually, by the way, through 3 weeks of the season, the NFL has already seen 18 games out of the 48 decided by 3 points or fewer, which is insane to think about. But that shows how much parity and how much fun the league is. But Titans-Raiders, that was a close one. Packers-Bucks, that was a 2-point game. Niners-Broncos, the 11-10 finish. Only the second time in NFL history that a NFL game finished with 11-10. If it wasn't for Jimmy Garoppolo throwing that horrible interception, the Niners coughing it up 2 times, and pulling a Dan Orlovsky, running out of the back of the end zone, thinking like he was playing in the CFL, I probably could have won that one. So it definitely was a weird week, going 8-8. Definitely not a great 2-week run in my straight-up picks. Definitely a lot of weirdness, a lot of bad breaks, a lot of, what-if plays. 1 or 2 things different happened. I could have had a much better straight-up record, but I was 500 again. I'll take it. And now with my records up against the spread straight-up, very oddly, in a positive and a negative way, against the spread, I am 22-25-1 through 48 games. Straight up, just flip to 25-22. I'm 25-22-1 straight up. So that is a very rare thing for me. I am ecstatic against the spread through 3 weeks to be up to about 47%. That's about usually what I try to get by the end of the year. So I have plenty of room to try to keep growing there. And straight up, definitely a low point for me, 25-22-1. It equals 53.1%. Not a great number to have through 3 weeks. Again, like I said, a lot of hokiness, a lot of weirdness. But I will take being above 500, and I will take having one of my best against the spread weekends in a very long time to try to keep getting to my 500 record against the spread with 16 more games coming up this weekend. Alright, so with all that being said, let me go into my predictions for this week. So on Thursday, when the 3-0 Miami Dolphins travel to Cincinnati in the brand new named Paycor Stadium for the Cincinnati Bengals game against the 1-2 Cincinnati Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals are 3.5-point favorites in this game. In one of my few upsets this week, I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here plus 3.5 and the Miami Dolphins straight up to win this game in an outright upset. Then on Sunday, in the first International Series game across the pond in London, England, I believe at Wembley or one of the London stadiums, the 2-1 Minnesota Vikings are playing New Orleans, the 1-2 Saints. The Minnesota Vikings are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Minnesota here, minus 2.5, and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Cleveland Browns travel to Atlanta to take on the 1-2 Atlanta Falcons. The Cleveland Browns are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cleveland Browns here, minus 1.5, and the Cleveland Browns straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Washington Commanders travel to Dallas to take on the 2-1 Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Dallas Cowboys here, minus 3, and the Dallas Cowboys straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Seattle Seahawks travel to Detroit to take on the 1-2 Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Detroit Lions here, minus 4.5, and the Detroit Lions straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Tennessee Titans travel to Indianapolis to take on the 1-1, very rare ones across the board, Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 3-point favorites in this game. In my second outright upset here, I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans here, plus 3, and Tennessee Titans straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Chicago Bears travel to New York to take on the 2-1 New York Giants. What a rare thing that you would think to say through 3 weeks. One of these teams is going to be 3-1, or they could both be very well 2-1-1. The New York Giants are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the New York Giants here, minus 3.5, and New York Giants straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Philadelphia to take on the only remaining NFC undefeated team, the 3-0 Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here, minus 6.5, and Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 New York Jets travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 1-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the New York Jets plus 3.5. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Buffalo Bills travel to Baltimore to take on the 2-1 Baltimore Ravens. The Buffalo Bills are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Buffalo Bills here, minus 3.5, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Houston to take on the 0-2-1 Houston Texans. The Los Angeles Chargers are 5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here, minus 5, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Arizona Cardinals travel to Carolina to take on the 1-2 Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are 2-point favorites in this game. In my third outright upset, give me the Arizona Cardinals here, plus 2, and the Arizona Cardinals straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 New England Patriots travel to Green Bay to take on the 2-1 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 10.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Green Bay Packers here, minus 10.5, and the Green Bay Packers straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Denver Broncos travel to Las Vegas in Allegiant Stadium to take on the only winless team led by bum Josh McDaniels, the 0-3 Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders, amazingly, are 1.5-point favorites. So in my fourth outright upset of the week, give me the Denver Broncos here, plus 1.5, and the Denver Broncos straight up. Then on Sunday Night Football, and probably the last time that we are going to see these two quarterbacks play each other, the 2-1 Kansas City Chiefs travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Kansas City Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here, minus 2.5, and Kansas City straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, when the 2-1 Los Angeles Rams travel to San Francisco to take on the 1-2 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. This is probably going to be the one pick that I'm going to hate because I know the history and I'll explain it later. But just like I've probably done every single time these two teams play, I'm going to roll with the Rams one more time. Give me the Los Angeles Rams here, plus 2.5, and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. So I think that might be a record for any viewers telling. I believe I have 5 outright upsets. 5 or 6 outright upsets of both against the spread and straight up. So I am definitely betting on the underdogs. I know the spreads aren't phenomenal, but I just feel that those teams are better in those spots. But there's that, and now time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Miami Dolphins over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one to where, look, the Miami Dolphins are the best team in the AFC, and in my opinion, they are the best team in the National Football League. Tua has played very well. I believe he has 7 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions. The defense has played fantastic. They held the Bills from scoring on 17 and 20 play drives, respectively. I am concerned about their running game. Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. They didn't give them a lot of money, but both of those guys, I believe, are averaging less than 3.5 yards per carry. I believe Edmonds is averaging 3.4 yards a carry, and Mostert's averaging 3.3. I could be wrong about that, but just with those names. But those are the numbers I saw they are averaging. And I think one of the big reasons why the Dolphins did so well last weekend was the Dolphins did not generate any sacks through the first 2 games. On Sunday against the Bills, they got 4 sacks. They got their first 4 sacks of the season. And I just really like how this Dolphins team is playing in confidence. I think, look, they have two of the top 5 yardage receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who had a massive 3rd and 22 conversion and another 100-yard game last Sunday. And I also just want to say the funny thing, I did see the Thomas Morstead butt punt. So Mark Sanchez has the butt fumble, and now we have Thomas Morstead kicking it off Trent Sherfield's butt for the butt punt. And fortunately, that was a positive thing, because think about it, if that would have stayed in the end zone, the Bills probably could have won off a special teams touchdown instead. And I do want to congratulate Cincinnati for the game they played against the Jets. They finally look like the team that people thought they were going to beat through the first 2 weeks. Joe Burrow with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. They really couldn't run the ball, which was surprising. I think P. Ryan ended up getting the most yards, and that's kind of a problem with Mixon being around the top 5, top 7 back, not being able to generate a lot. I want to congratulate Tyler Boyd for that 56-yard touchdown. That was the longest catch of the season for him, and a big touchdown. They got 2 big, I think 2 or 3 turnovers on the Jets. I know Logan Wilson got an interception. And they played a very good fundamental game against a Jet team that, through 2 weeks, you had some ups and downs, and they had that massive comeback, and you thought maybe the Jets could be more competitive. That's probably the one against the spread pick I regret the most. Is definitely the Jets plus 4.5. I thought maybe the Bengals wouldn't play as to their potential, but they finally did. So, but I'm going to take the Dolphins here because I just feel like when I look at the Bengals and the offensive line, I just don't trust it, okay? Like, they played the Jets, and good for them. And the Jets, they have some decent pass rushers, but besides the Williams guys in there and C.J. Mosley, they don't really have... And I wasn't that thrilled by it. Look, the Ravens beat up the Jets 24-9, and the next 2 games, we held the Jets to 9 points. The next 2 games, we gave up 42 to Miami. We gave up 27 to the Patriots with Mac Jones at offense. So, to me, I'm not sold on the Bengals in this spot. If the Bengals win this game, this would very much remind me of Week 4 last year. They were in a Thursday night game at home against the Florida team. Just it was Miami was Jacksonville. And, the Bengals were not really seen through 2 games as, like, this really good team they were questioning. And they played the Jaguars tough. The Jags blew a 14-point lead in the second half. And I believe the Bengals won 23-20 in a tough outing. And after that moment, the Bengals took off for the rest of the year. I feel like for the Dolphins and Bengals, this Dolphins team's a lot better than that Jags team. But that's what I kind of feel like this Bengals team is kind of hovering around now. Is that I feel like if the Bengals can beat the Dolphins, I feel like people will give Miami their credit, and they're still one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC, regardless if they win or lose. But this is just more so for Cincinnati saying, through 3 weeks, what's the more genuine team? Is it the Jets team that everybody thought and expected, or is it more the Cowboys and Steelers team that it's good? Joe Burrow's good, but that offensive line is bad. That defense isn't nearly as good, and this team might not even make the playoffs, or it's going to be a struggle to even win the AFC North, something that I did not expect to say at the beginning of the season. The Bengals have won 2 straight games against the Dolphins at home, so I am a little concerned about that, but I'm going to take the Dolphins here. They really didn't have that many big injuries. They didn't even have the right tackle. I think the Dolphins pass rush will have a bigger impact on the Bengals offensive line compared to the Bengals pass rush on the Dolphins offensive line. Even though I know the Dolphins do not have Austin Jackson for the next 3 games due to him being put on the IR. But I'm going to trust the Dolphins here. This is their moment to show that, moving forward, because I think they play the Jets in 2 weeks, that this Dolphins team, they're not only, now a division contender, they are a Super Bowl contending team with Tua at the helm, with Mike McDaniel probably sliding in to be the coach of the year. And this Dolphins team, what a story for them. And Miami might have their first genuine Super Bowl chance since the early 80s with Dan Marino. So that's why I like Miami here plus 3.5 and Miami straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the New Orleans Saints. This is one to where, for the Vikings, look, Kirk Cousins, he is 2-10 in Monday Night Football games. He has the worst primetime record, or worst Monday night record, ever, or he has the most losses. But hey, he's 46-31-1 in 1 o'clock games. You put Kirk Cousins right in the start of the day, he can play pretty well. And he played pretty well with the best of them. I do have a massive concern for the Vikings, though. The Vikings are giving up about 138 rush yards per game. And that's to the Eagles, running attack, the Lions running attacks, Williams and Swift had a really good showing, and even the Packers had a good, amount of run going for them. So I am concerned about that, and definitely how the Saints have been playing. I would hope that they would, lean into Kamara, lean into Ingram, lean into Tony Jones more in that way. And the Vikings still have a kicking issue as well. When I look at Greg Joseph and Seibert, that was just a weird kicking fiasco. They were all 50-plus yard field goals, but after Joseph missed the first 56-yarder, I didn't quite understand why the Vikings fell. Hey, let's put the guy back out there and have him kick from the same exact yardage. It might have been a different side of the field, but the same exact yardage, and think that something different was going to happen. And Seibert, with the 53-yard miss and the 40-plus yard miss, there was just so much bad special teams there. Like, that was tough. But I just watched that Saints team, man, and that, that was awkward. Like, Jameis ended up throwing, I believe, over 350 yards and he had a touchdown, but he had another 2 or 3 turnovers. Alvin Kamara had his first fumble, which basically changed the game since week 14 of the 2019 season. Thomas really didn't do anything, and he got hurt again. Jarvis Landry was dealing with some pain as well throughout the game. I do want to give Marquez Callaway an impressive touchdown pass catch. That was probably one of the better touchdown catches of the weekend. Where basically there were 3 Panthers around him, and he jumped up to get the ball, snatching, touchdowns from the jaws of interceptions, if you will. But I look at this Saints team and go, I thought the Saints team could be a playoff team. After watching the first 4 games, and I know James is playing with 4 back fractures. Tom's just come back for a few games. They still have Olave. They still have Landry. They don't have Trevor Penning, their tackle. This team is just not very good. They let Laviska Shenault, the former Jag cast-off, get a big 67-yard touchdown. And it's just one of those things to where, Kirk Cousins probably wants to revenge his one London game appearance when he tied with the Bengals back, I believe, in 2017. So that's his only tie. But just, watching the Vikings, even if Dalvin Cook can't play, I believe Alexander Mattison is a quality enough running back that he can kind of carry the load enough. And I just can't trust Jameis going against that Vikings defense. That Vikings defense isn't as good, but Jameis is just a guy that just loves, to play defenses, to give them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Could the Saints win? Sure, it's Kirk Cousins. You never know exactly if Kirk Cousins will show up as a beauty or a pumpkin week to week. And they have Alvin Kamara, so they definitely should be able to run the ball effectively. But I'm going to take the Vikings as a whole because I feel like I trust their offensive line a bit more. I trust their offensive weapons, and I just can't see Jameis in this spot playing a good enough game to out-duel Kirk or out-mistake Kirk in this type of game. Should be an interesting game. Sorry, England fans, you have to see the Saints play football. They are not definitely our brightest and best, but, good luck. Hopefully you enjoy all your pubs and all that, and all your beer claws and all that at the game. So that's why I like Minnesota here, minus 2.5, and Minnesota straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Atlanta Falcons. This one to me is essentially where, look, the Browns played another good game offensively. They had Nick Chubb, who, by the way, through 3 games, he has the most rushing yards for a Browns running back not named Jim Brown. That's incredibly impressive. I think the offensive line, that offensive line is playing sensational. They have a great center. They have a phenomenal left tackle. They have a good right tackle in Jack Conklin, who made a season debut. And, look, I have to give Amari Cooper his credit. He is the first receiver since Josh Gordon back in 2013 to have 2 consecutive 100-yard games of receiver for the Cleveland Browns. I thought the defense did really well, even though they did lose Taven Bryan. They lost Jeremiah Owusu, and they lost, I believe, Walker. Yeah, Walker. He tore his quadricep, so he is out for the year. Best wishes to him for the rest of the season to get healthy. But I just really like how the Browns have played quality football, and Jacoby Brissett with that Browns team, they are doing much better as a whole team than, I would say this, they're doing better professionally, but they are doing much better personally. If you told Browns fans at the beginning of the year they could go 2-1, and they should be 3-0 with that game against the Jets. If they could go 3-0, getting to play Atlanta, to get to a 4-0 start with only 7 games to go before Deshaun Watson can be eligible to play, that is telling you something there, in my opinion. But, kudos to the Browns organization there. The Falcons, look, I wasn't that impressed with them in a way. Mariota had 3 turnovers. He had the 1 interception and 2 fumbles, which were really bad. Finally, they let Kyle Pitts play, into the game. Through his first 2 games, he only had 4 receptions and 38 yards. By the end of the game, he had 5 receptions and 87 yards in the game, and he made some big catches early on to drive them down the field to get some touchdowns and field goals that could match up. And I want to highlight Cordero Patterson, who had a career high in rushing yards at 141 yards. What a story he's been from he's been always a good to very good kick returner. He's been a bust as a wide receiver, but since he's been willing to go to running back, he has played very well to, get back-to-back contracts on the Falcons and actually be, a very valuable and important weapon to them into their offense. And I want to congratulate Drake London for another touchdown. That's 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games after not having one in his first game in week 1. Do I think Atlanta could compete against Cleveland? Yes, I do think there's defensive injuries. And, of course, sorry for me not to mention, best wishes to Cleveland Brown defensive end Myles Garrett, who yesterday was involved in a car accident where his car flipped over multiple times. He is out of the hospital. He did suffer minor injuries from what I've heard. So I don't know if he's going to play, so that will be a huge plus for the Falcons if he cannot go. But best wishes to a quick and speedy recovery to Mr. Garrett. But I just think even with Myles Garrett not there, I know Clowney, he should be there. I just think the Browns have been a better team. I think Jacoby's played better than Mariota has. I think the Browns have better weapons. I think they have a better secondary, and I just trust the Browns, even with the defensive injuries to Owusu, Owusu. Then I've got Walker and Taven Bryan. I think the Browns have just been a better football team. And I think they go into this game, they run the ball against a suspect Atlanta run defense, And I think the Browns' offensive line will hold up, and I don't think the Browns will make as many big mistakes as other teams have against the Falcons. But we shall see. Should be a good game. So that's why I like Cleveland here, -1.5, and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Washington Commanders. This is one to where, the Commanders got their rear ends kicked by the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz got sacked 9 times. That's the most sacks in a single game this season. I believe he essentially through the first half was sacks and yards. I believe he essentially almost had no yards of total offense generated by him. The running game got pretty much shut down and locked up. I was incredibly, kind of disappointed where, Carson, after that great week 1 where he, played Trevor Lawrence, one of the new young faces, and pretty much went toe-to-toe. He led the league in touchdown passes for 2 weeks, and then he just turns back into Carson Wentz to where you're like, he's just a tease. You never really can rely on him, and ugh. And look, this is a tough game for the Commanders. Over the last 12 meetings, the Commanders only won 2 of the last 12 games against the Cowboys. And the Cowboys did a good job against the Giants last week. Actually, you know what? There was a great joke, and I will mention this on air. So there are technically 3-0. There are technically three 3-0 teams in the NFL right now: the Miami Dolphins, the Philadelphia Eagles, and Cooper Rush. Because Cooper Rush now is 3-0 in his career. The Cowboys now have won 10 of the last 11 games against the Giants, dating back to 2017, and I think they've also caused 17 turnovers in those 11 games, which is downright, scary, and how inept the Giants' offense has been through the last 5 seasons. And look, they generated a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones. I believe Daniel Jones got pressured on 27 of his 40 dropbacks. And so if Carson Wentz could get sacked 9 times by the Eagles, he definitely could get sacked by the team that is leading the league in sacks in the Dallas Cowboys. Do I think that, and also I'm going to congratulate Cooper Rush, only Roger Staubach and Jason Garrett are the only 2 other quarterbacks to start their Cowboy careers 3-0 moving forward. And that's the thing. Do I think the Commanders have a shot? Yeah, because I feel like, look, the Commanders, they've had their moments, and, I know they don't have their starting center. They had to bring in former Texan Nick Martin because I believe Chase Royer was put on the IR, which is really tough. And the Commanders, look, Carson's had his moments against the Cowboys as an Eagle. So, he definitely knows how to play this Dallas team. But just even with all that being said, I think the Cowboys defense will be just too smothering against the Washington offensive line. I think Zeke and Pollard, who combined for about over 160 yards together, will be able to run the ball effectively on the Washington defense. And I just trust that Carson's better than Cooper. But if you're telling me who's going to make a bigger flaw that will, cost them the game, I believe it is going to be I believe it's going to be Carson making more mistakes, and I think Cooper plays a more efficient and cleaner game, which gets the Cowboys to 3-1 and drops the Commanders to 1-3. I think that those 2 records together wouldn't be that surprising. I think the surprising is realizing that Cooper Rush was the guy that led the Cowboys to a 3-1 record, or a 3-0 record, and Dak was 0-1. That's surprising. So that's why I like Dallas here, -3, and Dallas straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Seattle Seahawks. This is one to where I am going to take the Detroit Lions here based off of the fact that through 3 games, look, they've scored the most touchdowns in the NFL. They've scored the most offensive touchdowns in the league through 3 weeks. They have played really well. They're, competing in games. Jamal Williams looks solid. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks good. TJ Hawkinson had another big touchdown catch. And this Lions team, it's a good quality team. They haven't had a bad loss. If you think about it, if Dan Campbell didn't go for that field goal there at the end, that 53-yard field goal, down 4, or down, up 4, and just maybe went down 4 on 4-for-4, maybe the Lions win that game. But we'll never know. And look, I know that Amon-Ra St. Brown apparently suffered an ankle injury, and DeAndre Swift's going to miss at least the next 2 games. I think Jamal Williams could pick up the slack. And I just look at Seattle and go, they're just not good. Their defense is still, letting receivers run up and down the field. It's not pretty. Geno and the offense, look, they've done their part. Geno played actually a pretty good game for the most part, getting touchdowns to both Disley, getting to be able to, move the ball. But Atlanta did have 3 turnovers, and they still couldn't win the game. And I just feel like, again, if you're going to give me Dan Campbell and the Lions through 3 weeks, or Geno Smith and the Seahawks, what I've seen through 3 weeks, give me the Detroit Lions to win this game, even with the injuries to Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think if both of them are out, I would take Seattle to cover the 4.5, but I think Amon-Ra is at least going to play, and I think Jamal can do enough. So I feel good enough to take Detroit here -4.5. Again, if both of them are gone, I might lean towards, I would tell you, I'm still going to stick with it regardless, but I would tell anybody out there that's betting on that Sunday, if Amon-Ra and Swift are both out, I might take Seattle +4.5 just because I don't know who else in the offense can do anything besides Hawkinson. But when you look at these two teams, the Lions have been more competitive, more consistent, and they just seem to be, clicking a bit better than the Seahawks do right now. I know the Seahawks, got a big emotional win week 1, but then they got trounced by the Niners in week 2, which was tough. And then week 3, they were in a competitive game against Atlanta that Geno threw away. So give me Detroit here. Better roster, better momentum, better talent, and I just trust Jared Goff to outplay Geno in this game in the Motor City. Though it's amazing to think about it, though. The Lions have already had 3 of their 9 home games already through 4 weeks. That's insane to think about. So that's why I like Detroit here, minus 4.5. Detroit straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Indianapolis Colts. This is one to where I am taking the Tennessee Titans to win this football game, based off the fact of that I just think Tannehill has been playing a little bit better than Matt Ryan has. Look, Matt Ryan and the Colts had a phenomenal effort. They had they had Jelani Woods, like I said, hit 2 of his 2 catches for 3 targets were touchdowns that were huge. And Chase McLaughlin, after cutting Rodrigo Blankenship, he was able to make both his field goals, while Matt Amendola missed a PAT and 30-yard field goal that could have changed the outcome. And look, I want to congratulate the Titans too. Mike Vrabel still only has 1 3-game losing streak in his entire career. I thought Tannehill played a decent enough game. He had a rushing touchdown and the short little touchdown pass to Jeff Swain. And Derrick Henry had a solid, 20 carries for 85 yards. Maybe that's not exactly what you want from your, one of the highest paid running backs in the league. You'd want a little bit more than that, but you would take the consistency and then being able to move the ball, forward against a decent, a overrated Raiders defense. And I'm going to congratulate Kevin Byard in his 100th career game. He basically got the game-winning interception on Derek Carr when Darren Waller dropped the ball. And again, I think the Colts, could they win this game? Sure, they could. I think the Colts, they have a momentum. They have, I think, a bit of a better offensive line. Even though that Titan offensive line, even though they lost Taylor Dewan for the year with a knee injury, I think that Titans offensive line did a good enough job to keep Tannehill up. And I'm just going to trust what I've seen recently out of the Titans compared to what I've recently seen out of the Colts. The Titans should be technically a 2-1 football team. Yes, they got trounced by the Bills, but basically, who hasn't over the last several games? And I'm just going to trust Tannehill outplays Ryan in this game. Henry and Taylor cancel each other out, and the receiving corps are about the same. And I'm just going to go with off recent history. The Titans have won 4 of the last 5 against the Colts overall. So, should be a good game. Basically, I feel like the winner of this game basically saves their division hopes alive. The other one who loses, I believe, is out of the division entirely, regardless of what happens for the rest of the year. But I'm going to take the Titans here. Tannehill outplays Ryan, and Tannehill's defense gets 1 more stop compared to Indy, in this game. So that's why I like Tennessee here, +3, and Tennessee straight up. The next game, the New York Giants over the Chicago Bears. This one is one where I am taking the Giants based off of coaching. Look, the Bears, congratulations to them. They ran for 284 yards yesterday, and that was without Dave Montgomery, who left the game early in the first quarter with a knee and ankle injury. And if anybody could tell me, please tell me if Dave Montgomery is going to be out for the season or extended amount of time, just because I'm curious, and I also drafted him in fantasy, so that would really suck, and I could drop him. So, but the Bears ran for 284 yards. That's the 19th most in franchise history, and the most in a game for them since 1984. And they needed all those yards because, my gosh, Justin Fields from the Ohio State University is not very good at all. Ladies and gentlemen, through 3 games, this is 3 games, 2 compelling statistics here. Fields, 51.1% of his passes. That's his completion percentage. He's thrown for under 300 yards. He has 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Oh, and then here's the great kicker. If you had the over-under of 10 completions in games, ladies and gentlemen, Justin Fields has completed 8 or fewer passes in all 3 of his games this year. And somehow the Bears are 2-1. That, to me, is just a downright abysmal, horrifying trend. I know that the Bears, look, he lost Montgomery, though Khalil Herbert, I think, is going to be probably a better running back than David Montgomery. And I know Velus Jones is out and N'Keal Harry, but they were all bums anyway, okay? Velus Jones was a 25-year-old senior, okay, at receiver at Tennessee, so, That is just too bad. God, I mean, like, okay, even though, again, I will mention, he went to Ohio State University. Name me a great Ohio State quarterback. You can't. You can't. And I feel that same way about C.J. Stroud. Everybody that's hyping up C.J. Stroud, I'm definitely more of a Bryce Young fan. C.J. Stroud's not going to be good in the pro, okay? And you can say, oh, you're being biased or you're not giving him a chance. Well, look at the history, the lineage of Ohio State. They're not good. But I digress. But that's what I'm taking the Giants. Like, I trust Daniel Jones can outplay Justin Fields. You know, I know Daniel Jones did not look that great yesterday. And he did have that bad interception to Trayvon Diggs. But I think Daniel Jones is a bit of a better athlete. I think he's got better offensive coaching behind him. Because I'll trust Mike Kafka over Luke Getsy in the coordinator matchup. And I congratulate Roquan Smith for the game-winning interception and the 16 tackles. You know, if Davis Mills didn't throw an interception at Eddie Jackson in the back of the end zone, I think I win this game. But I digress. But, like, in this game, I'm just going to take Daniel Jones over Fields. And I'm just going to trust Brian Daboll over Eberflus. Like, both these teams are 2-1, and nobody, you know, this is one of those games to where nobody's really going to move the needle on the Bears and Giants regardless. I just feel like whoever gets to win gets to hold up a little bit more. And I honestly feel like the Giants need this more, because the Giants actually could win the NFC East from what I've seen during them for 4 weeks. The Bears, if they lose, I just don't see it. I don't think they're better than the Lions. Holistically, I don't think they're better than the Vikings, and they're definitely not better than the Packers. So, any chance the Bears can get in this kind of weird game of mediocrity, I think that the Bears, you know, should try to get it, but I don't think they do. I just think the Giants, I'm going to trust Daboll over Eberflus, Daniel Jones over Justin Fields, and I'm just going to trust the Giants coaching staff to outdo the Bears. So that's why I like the New York Giants here, -3.5, and New York Giants straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Congratulations to the Jaguars. First road win. First genuine road win in 18 consecutive games. They lost, in 19 games. They lost 18 consecutive road games. It is also their largest margin of victory since 2017. The last time the Jags went to the playoffs and went to the AFC Championship game when they lost to New England. And I want to congratulate Trevor Lawrence. He threw 3 touchdown passes for the first time since his debut, where I believe he also threw 3 or 4 turnovers. And actually, it's he and Patrick Mahomes are the only quarterbacks in the league with 5 or more passing touchdowns and 1 or fewer interceptions. Job well done. And I want to congratulate the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator, who made Justin Herbert and the Chargers look like a mess. So, through 3 weeks already, the Jaguars have caused 8 turnovers on defense by the Jags defense. All of last year, the Jags only had 9 turnovers for the whole 16-game season. They're already going to probably pass or surpass their season total by game 4. That's incredible. Look, and, you know, the Jags up and down the field were the better team over the Chargers. I felt like that was a topsy-turvy kind of game to where you gained a lot more respect for the Jaguars and you lost a lot of respect for the Chargers just of how bad they looked. And I think the key play for me in that game, it was the 4th and 1 call where they were at the 50. Now, it was basically still a game, or 16-10 at that point. They let James Robinson go 50 yards untouched to put it 23-10, and the Jags never looked back from that point. You know, kudos to Doug Peterson, Lacans, Press Taylor. I don't know who the defensive coordinator for the Jags is, but kudos to them for putting up a fantastic performance against the Charger team. And, little fun fact, the Chargers, for the first time, lost to the Jags at home. They were 5-0 entering that game. But to me, this is one of those games where, look, Doug Peterson is going back to his former team, both as a player and a coach. And they're, in my opinion, they're playing the best team in the NFC by far. The Eagles have a +36 in terms of point differential, which is the highest in the NFC. But I just want to bring this up, okay? And look, Jalen Hurts right now, I would say he's second in the MVP. I'd probably put Tua first. But Jalen Hurts does have 6 total touchdowns to only 1 interception. I think Tua has like 7 or 8 compared to 2. And the Eagles, you know, like I said before, they had 9 sacks, most in the game by any team this year. But I just want to bring this up for people. I did some research, okay? And nobody's talking about this in the media, but I'm just going to bring this up. People are raving about how great Jalen Hurts and that offense has looked. And yes, they've looked great. But ladies and gentlemen, do people realize what's happened in the second half for the Eagles' last 2 games? I did. The Eagles have scored 0 points in the last 2 second halves. And their offense that everybody raves about has amassed only 197 total yards in both second halves. So do the math. The Eagles' offense is averaging under 100 yards in the second half the last 2 games. That's abysmal. That's pathetic. I feel like they're playing volleyball. They're saying, oh, we just need to get to 25. Oh, we'll win volleyball games 24-22. Okay? And if I really wanted to be a technical person, so in the last 2 games, the Eagles in 5 of the 8 quarters they have played football have scored nothing. Because remember, last week, they put up 24 points in the second quarter. That was it. Everything else, they put up nothing. So, this Eagles team is good and as dominant as they've been. And I want to congratulate Jonathan Gannon for having a phenomenal 2-week stretch, going to 9 sacks. This team is not, I want to see what they do in the second half, because I guarantee you this, okay? And I guarantee you this. They're going to need to score in the second half against Jacksonville. I don't think they can shut out the Jags for, the second half with that offense, with that offensive line, and that team. And maybe they prove me wrong. Who knows? But I just want to see what they do in the second half. And look, I took the Eagles to be, I do think the Eagles will win by a score. But I think with the 7, I was going to try to push it, But if you want to say Jacksonville plus 6.5, in terms of just the betting odds, I can totally see that. Because I am not, I think Jacksonville, I think the Eagles, they feel good about it, but I just think, again, that second half really concerns me. The second half really concerns me. And I think they're going to need to score in the second half against Jacksonville, unless their defense is just, phenomenal. They just know, okay, we have to do our business. But that's just, I want to tell everybody that's hyping the Eagles up that much, I wouldn't, nobody's really talking about it. Don't note that. Just make a note of that. 197 total yards in 2 second halves the last 2 games, and they've scored no points. So, but I'm just going to take the Eagles. They're at home. They have, the better quarterback, I think the better roster. And I feel like for Jacksonville, I think, if I finally, I picked against Jacksonville the first 4 weeks of the year. I got him 2 embarrassing performances. They always say things come in 3s. So if Jacksonville finally beats Philadelphia, or if Jacksonville beats Philadelphia, you have to put Jacksonville now into that definite playoff contender, definite how far can the Jags climb conversation. And I think I'm going to start taking the Jags more in football games because just they are not the same old Jags that people have known for years. But that's why I like Philadelphia here, minus 6.5, and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the New York Jets. This is what I like to call the crappy toss-up, a crappy toss-up game of the week. Nobody really cares for these 2 teams. The only positive thing I'm just going to say about the Steelers is George Pickens had that great catch. They couldn't stop Nick Chubb. Trubisky was kind of up and down. The offensive line really couldn't move the ball. Claypool, Deontay really couldn't make, even though Deontay had a big drop. And for the Jets, hopefully Garrett Wilson can be healthy. Their offensive line got worked. Flacco looked old. And they're going to get Zach Wilson back. Okay. So for me, Zach Wilson playing well will probably let the Jets win. If Zach Wilson plays like Zach Wilson has, I think the Steelers win. And the only other thing I was going to say about this game is, the reason why I'm taking Pittsburgh here is that all time through the history of the league, the Steelers and Jets have played 11 times in Heinz Field, Three Rivers, Acrisure Stadium, whatever name you want to call this, or Three Rivers, Heinz Field / Acrisure Stadium. Pittsburgh all time is 10-1 at home against the Jets at home. So, with that being said, I don't think Zach Wilson's going to be lighting the world on fire. He could, because I think he has a higher ceiling than Trubisky, because we don't know what he is. But I think Zach has a tough time. Though the Minkah Fitzpatrick injury, I just want to tell everybody, Minkah Fitzpatrick does, he is in concussion protocol, and if he is out, that is a massive thing. I don't think it's going to change my pick, but if anybody that, was taking the Steelers minus 3.5, that Minkah injury, I would probably tell you maybe lean towards the Jets plus 3.5 just for that reason. And again, this is one of those, games that I'm going to watch. I'm a fanatic, but I could see a lot of the country outside of New York and Pittsburgh not really caring about this game because it's just going to be bad football, just awkward teams, awkward injuries. not a lot of great stars. But like the Pittsburgh, they're home. They have that dominant home field advantage against this team, and I don't think Zach Wilson, if he can come back, will play well against a Steelers team that's going to be 500. But then they go into their long haul, and it's going to be a long month plus for the Steelers moving forward. So that's why I like the Pittsburgh Steelers here straight up, but giving the New York Jets plus 3.5. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Baltimore Ravens. This is one to where the Buffalo Bills, as crazy as this is, okay, they have been dominating teams for a while, but in one-score games, they are 0-6 in their last one-score games, which is the issue that I have with dominating performances like that. I will always tell you, if I was a coach, I would want my team to win every week by 7 to 14 points every week. Because I would want my team prepared for close games. Because everybody, when you play the Bills and you're getting, your tail kicked in, it's fun. But once you face that adversity, just to use the Mike Tyson line, everybody has a game plan, or the Bills have a plan, until someone punches them right back in the mouth. Because they've lost their last 6 one-score games, and that's just crazy knowing how good this Buffalo team is. But they just can't, when cheeks get tight, when butts get clenched, when the pressure's on, for the last several games, they can't win these close games. And I think that's part of the problem with, look, Josh Allen threw the ball 62 times. And it just, it didn't matter, it didn't matter at the end of the day. And look, this is going to be the game of the weekend, in my opinion. You have 2 MVP candidates in Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson going back and forth. Lamar's the first quarterback in NFL history to have 2 consecutive games with 3+ passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. He actually, I believe, leads the NFL in quarterback rating, and he leads the NFL in touchdown passes with 10 TD passes to only 2 interceptions. Mark Andrews also had 2 touchdowns and 89 yards. Very nice for them. But, in this game, like, you're playing 2 bad secondaries, one hampered by injuries in Buffalo with Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and another one, Dane Jackson. And now their Vanderbilt guy, he broke his hand, so he's going to be out for an extended amount of time. So both these secondaries are banged up, or, the Ravens secondary in offense is just bad, where, we're giving up big touchdowns and big plays to Devontae Parker, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and it's not like Stephon Diggs is, a scrub. No, that was all sarcasm, by the way. So, and we're going to get Gabriel Davis back. It's just going to be one of those things to where I think the Bills' pass rush is going to do a better job. They've had a very good pass rush for the last few weeks. And you're going to tell me who in this kind of shootout is going to win? I'll take Josh Allen behind his offensive line, and I'll take the Ravens' offensive line to fold under more pressure compared to the Bills' offensive line. Should be a great game. It's going to be back and forth, insane, but give me the Buffalo Bills here. I think Allen behind a stronger offensive line and the Bills' defensive line going up against a weaker Ravens' offensive line win this game in an incredible, offensive, entertaining shootout. But, like I said, so also just by the way, don't play the Bills or Ravens defenses in fantasy. Just don't do it. I have to change mine, but I'm just giving you some fantasy advice. So give me Buffalo here minus 3.5 and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Houston Texans. The Chargers are banged up right now, bad. They are banged up bad. They do not have Keenan Allen, even though from what I heard he could come back. Keenan Allen's gone. You have J.C. Jackson gone. You have Corey Linsley gone. You have Trey Pipkins gone. They just lost Joey Bosa to a groin injury, and he'll be out week to week. Rashawn Slater's out for the year due to a torn bicep. You have Jalen Guyton. He's going to be out for the year over ACL. Like, this Charger team is just falling apart at the seams. And, even with all, and with all that being said, and look, Justin Herbert, he played through the game. He obviously got that rib injection. He did not play well. He had that one great throw to Guyton, but that was it. Nothing else really mattered. But even with all those injuries and all those problems, and I know Houston won this game last year, I'm still going to take the Chargers because I just feel like the Chargers, if they get Keenan Allen back, I think they need to prove that they are, as good a team as I thought they could be. Or they're still a good team. Because after you lose to the Jags by 28 points, where, it wasn't even a really competitive game, you went down a lot. I actually personally believe the Denver Broncos, who, are led by Hackett and Wilson, who, look horrifically a mess offensively, I think the Denver Broncos are better than the Chargers right now. Like, that's saying something of all that talent. But you can't lose to this Texans team, who, look, have been competitive. They have lost their games by an average of 5 points a game. You know, they've been in they tied with the Colts. They were a one-score game with Denver, and they almost beat the Bears if Davis Mills didn't throw that pick, but I digress. But I can't do it. Like, I just think Houston, Davis Mills, showed me who he was. He's not a bad thrower, but I feel like the Chargers will get an opportunity or two. The Texans really don't have that many big-time receiving threats, and I just don't think that the Chargers are going to play that bad, even as banged up as they are, for a second consecutive week against this Texans team. If the Texans win this game, that's a massive win for the Texans, and I feel like that is a death knell for the Chargers, because then at that point you're looking at the Chargers going, they might actually not make the playoffs, and Brandon Staley is going to be on a massive hot seat moving for the rest of the year if they lose this game. I'm going to take the Chargers -5 because I just feel like Herbert's going to play, and I hope he bounces back, but, who knows. But if people took Houston +5, that might be the smarter play. I'm just going to trust the Chargers to play better, and I would let Chase Daniel play. I think Chase Daniel could play this game, win this game, and do well. But I'm going to take the Chargers. Better quarterback, better roster, and I'm just going to trust the Chargers staff to outdo the Houston one in this kind of game. So that's like Los Angeles here -5, and Los Angeles straight up. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the Carolina Panthers. This is one where I'm going with the better quarterback. Could the Panthers win this game? Sure. I believe that Cliff Kingsbury and Matt Rule have played each other the last 2 years, and Matt Rule has won both games. He won the game in Arizona last year, 31-10, and I believe he won the game in Carolina 2 years ago against Arizona. I forget the score of that, but I believe Matt Rule is 2-0. But at the end of the day, look, Kyler's coming off a game where he had a career high in attempts, I believe completions, and they're not at home. The Cardinals, since the game against Green Bay on Thursday Night Football last year, the Cardinals have lost 7 straight home games. And I just, there's just a part of me going like, I think it's better that they're, on the road. They win a lot more games on the road, amazingly, I guess, outside of State Farm. And I am concerned because in 4 games, in 9 of the 16 quarters, Arizona has only scored 1 touchdown and 4 field goals in 9 of 16 quarters. You take out 7 quarters. You take out the 4th in Kansas City. You take out the second half against the Raiders. And you take out... you take out the second half against the Raiders and the 4th quarter against the Chiefs. The Cardinals have only scored 1 touchdown and 4 field goals through, that span. And look, the Panthers, good for them. They played a good game. They played a Saints team that was rocked. Baker had, a big touchdown pass. Their defense got a big 44-yard fumble recovery from Haynes. And I like what Carolina's doing, and I could definitely see, West Coast, East Coast team. Matt Rule's won the last 2 games. I just think Kyler Murray is going to outplay Baker. I would hope Cliff could, coach the team against Matt Rule's squad to, win and play a little more effectively. And also just know the fact that they were embarrassed last year. Most of that squad was there. And that they would want to take out revenge on a Panther team that, isn't that good. But I'm going to trust that Kyler outplays Baker. Could the Panthers win this game? Sure, because Matt Rule could outcoach Cliff Kingsbury. Amazingly. But I'm going to take the better quarterback. I'm going to take the better quarterback in this one. I'm going to take Kyler to beat Baker in this game. That's going to, be real awkward. And I think maybe a lifesaver for Rule and definitely a death note for Kingsbury. But Kingsbury has 4 more years of his contract, so good luck with that. So that's why I like Arizona here, +2, and Arizona straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the New England Patriots. Mac Jones got hurt. Apparently he suffered a severe high ankle sprain, and that is enough for me. I know the Packers, their defense has been great. They held the Bucks to 12 points. They held the Bears to about 10 points. The first game, they kind of got trounced by the Vikings. I congratulate Romeo Doubs for his first touchdown of his career. And Aaron Rodgers, for the first time since 2014, beat Tom Brady in a football game. And also, by the way, that game, that was the lowest scoring game between MVPs, I think, since 2004 when Kurt Warner faced Brett Favre in a game in 2004. That was that shows you how bad I think the rest of the cores of those two teams are moving forward. But Mac Jones got hurt, and I just can't trust Brian Hoyer. Mac Jones is going to be out for, I believe, an extended amount of time. I believe he'll be put on the IR. I'd probably go to Bailey Zappa. Let's see what Bailey has. But that's just me. And I was real close to taking the Packers plus 10.5 on the line. I really was. Because, look, the Packers in the second half, through 3 games, they have scored only 10 points through 3 second halves. At least they're better than the Eagles over the last 2 games. They scored 0. But, it's just like, that's a massive problem. But I'm just like, well, they played the Bears, and they were 10-point favorites then, and I took Chicago in the same way, and they ended up covering by 17. So I'm like, is Brian Hoyer really going to move the ball against that defense, which played really well? I just can't see it. It's not going to be a pretty game. Look, Green Bay's motivated. They've lost 3 of the last 4 to New England, but I think that those were all to Brady games, or Rodgers wasn't there. I think this time around, I think Rodgers, even with the offense he has, kind of ekes out a win against, or he dominates a win over New England that, just like with Baltimore, he gets a big win to move forward to 3-1. Maybe not that impressed, but at least to keep moving forward. So that's all that Green Bay here, minus 10.5, and Green Bay straight up. The next game, the Denver Broncos over the Las Vegas Raiders. This is one to where the Raiders are the worst team in football. That is not me stating an opinion. That's fact. They are 0-3. No other team. First time since 1958 that I think I said the Raiders are the worst team through 3 games. Holistically, since then. And I know they're playing a Denver offensive juggernaut. That they were the first time that the Broncos won a game with 10 punts and a win since 2016. Russell Wilson threw 20 for 33 for about 180 yards and looked like an absolute idiot. And he looked lost. But in that last drive, you saw the old Russ there, who's now 17-4 all time against the 49ers. The most wins against the 49ers all time. But at the end of the day, this Raiders defense is bad. The Titans only scored 7 points against the Bills. They got up 24 against the Raiders. The Cardinals got 29. Look at how that offense has looked. And then the Chargers, they put up 24. So, and look, the Broncos' season high is 16. I think the Broncos will score more than 16 points in this game. And I can't trust the Raiders. Look, I know that, Hackett's a bad coach and McDaniels is probably better. But Josh McDaniels is such a scrub. Look, they had a meeting after the game. He might get fired by the end of the year of how this keeps going. But I told everybody that Josh McDaniels was a bum, and he sucks as a coach. He should have never been hired. They should have kept Rich Bisaccia. But yeah, I'm just going to go with that. I can't trust this Raiders team. I'm going to trust Russ enough and that defense, which has played outstanding. And the Rams passing game coordinator, who's now the defense coordinator for Denver, he should get some head coaching looks over the next couple weeks or next couple years because he has done a really great job hammering that defense for the last 3 weeks with the talent he's had. So I'm going to take Russ over Derek, and I'm going to trust the Broncos to eke out another game against the Raider team, which I don't have a lot of faith in. The Raiders could win, but I'm going to trust Russ and the Denver management over Josh McDaniels and his cluelessness and his stupidity. So that's what Denver here, plus 1.5, and Denver straight up. And then the final 2 games, Kansas City over Tampa Bay. This is one to where, look, KC, they've looked better. Special teams really screwed them. If none of those special teams blunders didn't happen, I think the Chiefs would have won. In Tampa, they don't have their line's banged up. They might not have Godwin and Julio back for another week, and I just think that Mahomes is playing better than Brady is. And I think that Chiefs defensive line will get pressure on Brady to make him uncomfortable. And I'm going to trust that Mahomes' arm and his weapons are just better than Brady's arm and his weapons going into this game. Should be a great game. Again, enjoy this last time that we'll probably see this game, but I'm going to take Mahomes. Better playing right now. More talent, and I just trust the Chiefs offense to put a few more points on the Bucs defense compared to the Bucs putting on the Chiefs. Sounds like KC here, minus 2.5, and KC straight up. And lastly, the Rams over the 49ers. Trent Williams is out. This is a game that is going against everything in my favor. Shanahan's won the last 6 times in the regular season, but with no Trent Williams, I think the Rams get it done with Aaron Donald, who got his 100 sacks in 130 games, and I think Stafford throws a touchdown. to end his streak that stopped with last week against the Cardinals, where he didn't get a touchdown. So that's like the Los Angeles Rams here, plus 2.5, and the LA Rams straight up. And that is it. So until next week, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everybody, so long.